Thank you. Having spent most of my life in agriculture, social business wasn't on my plan when I left agricultural college, but my plan was to travel and to help people. My family were very people orientated, helping. The Royals community might not come from a rural background in South Australia, so it was in our genes, I guess. And the destiny took me to Papua New Guinea, my wife and I was working with a company up there. And that particular company was going into receivership. I was only young, I had a wife and 2 children. I burnt my bridges in Australia with the previous boss and I wasn't coming back. I wouldn't have got a job. We were in a desperate situation and I wouldn't have got an income and I didn't know the country, there was no mobile phones, there was no television, there was nothing, was stuck in lay. Out of that adversity came where I'm going now. We set up what we didn't know then, but we set up a social business, but I didn't know what that was. It was just we had to make income. Over 3 years, I changed the life of about 5,000 or 6,000 people within 100 kilometres radius of Lae. We actually established 800 chicken farmers to grow chickens at village level. But Professor Eunice, I related to this so much. I changed their lives, but I didn't realise how much I was putting cash into a village society. I had to get the World Health Organisation involved. Never heard of them before, because they had to come in and help me to adjudicate. We had jealousy going on because there's money being put in the communities. We had village people that were only used to looking after village crops. They'd go off and have a sleep in the paddock for 3 or 4 days. I had to educate them to look after chickens, to feed and water them, because the chickens we were going to give them income to build their farms, which were out of all bush material. We were going to give them the chickens, we were going to give them the feed, and then we were going to buy the chickens back from them to feed the community of Papua New Guinea. And that was a major task. So we had 5 million chickens at the end of 3 years being grown and brought back into our processing plant. We had massive problems. Roads, huge, no road network. Rain, 5 metres of rain a year. And the sheds were made out of kunai grass. The kunai grass, they didn't understand what it meant if the chickens got wet. They'd be floating down the road sometimes. The trucks would get bogged. We had fighting with people shooting each other over the money because they're making really good income. In fact, I was paying them too much. And we had to manage their income. We had to put finance in. We had to get people to change. So that all went, man, what have I got myself in for? But it worked. 40 years later, still working. That project's gone all around the world. That was the start of it. We had the World Bank come in, gave us money, $2 million. We didn't ask. They came in and see what we did. They gave us money. 2 years later, we got money. We put it into a bank. We invited them in to come back and show what we're doing. We paid that money back. And they said, no, we don't want that paid back. I said, I'm an Aussie. I run I'm ethics in business. You're getting this money back. You lend it to us. We're starting. We're successful. And they said, well, we don't want it. I said, well, you're taking it anyway. So we TT'd it in their bank account. So as a result of all that, I was working with a gentleman in Papua New Guinea many years later who introduced me to the concepts of Professor Eunice. And Masood Issa, he's a Grameen Board Bank director. That led to me getting involved with Grameen, and I was asked to go up there and have a look at this particular project that they said that they would set up to grow chickens. I nearly died when I got there. I thought, my God, you think you're going to grow chickens in that environment and the way you're doing it? This is not going to work. You know, we need to set up biosecurity measures. We need structures in place. We need SOPs, standing operating procedures. We need to train the staff. Massive project, and this is only a small project, but I could see where I was going. I had a vision of what I wanted them to go towards, and that was to set up this same project to set up in Papua New Guinea. So I tried to install the vision of where we're going. And I said, in 5 years' time, you're going to be setting up village chicken growing operations in the village. Oh, well, no. So we took them, a delegation to Papua New Guinea and showed them what I had set up there 35, 40 years ago. And all of a sudden, bang, the light come on. We can do that. I said, yes, you can. With the advent of internet and mobile phones, that's made the whole thing viable. I knew the structure of what they were doing. I knew what had to be done. I've done it 100 times with different companies. I've worked in many countries around the Pacific doing similar things, but for a commercial venture. I said, with the advent of mobile phones and the internet, we can guide you. And that's exactly what I've been able to do. So going across, where were we now? These are the students that or the girls and boys that were taken off the tips that Duncan actually managed to get onto the farm. They are all got their rubber boots on, they've got their overalls on, they've got their ID, they've got hats to protect them against the sun. This was all part of this training process, because these people had never been working for a job for a company before. So we had to teach them, I didn't, but Duncan and the team had to teach them about coming to work on time, to be responsible socially, to look after security, and then look after chickens. So we managed to get a chicken consultant expert that had worked with me here in Australia, who was in the Philippines, to come in, and he understood the procedures that I'd trained them, so he came on board, which took the pressure off me. I didn't have to go there as much, and we eventually trained these young ladies who, by the way, most of them don't have fathers because they were killed in the Pol Pot regime, the Civil War up there in the early 90s. So most of them have got mums but no dads. So we had to train them about the husbandry management of chickens. Now that was the start of it all. The idea was to get this training structure in place, to put a blueprint, to get a structure so that we could have a breeding operation, so that we could produce the day-old chickens that we could actually go out to the villages to set up. Now that was too big a vision for everybody else. I had that vision. I knew where we were going, so we just had to go step by step. It was about like the Professor Munis said, it was a worm. We didn't know where we were going with this. We just had to, I just had to guide them down that track. So an email would come in daily. We'd sit down, go through conference calling, Skype, and go through it. And it's marvellous with technology what you can do. So these young farmers, as they call them, are working in these types of sheds. They started off with village thatch roofed huts, which is very similar to what I had in Papua New Guinea, so I thought I was back home again. And because I call Papua New Guinea my home, I spent so many years up there. So they have got these birds that have come out of the villages, but the challenge was they weren't laying many eggs, and their chickens were very susceptible to diseases. They didn't have the genetical growth that we needed in them. I called them scrub turkeys and tasted like galah. That's what I thought. To this day I still agree. But I thought, I've got to change this. So we found a feed mill company in Vietnam that was prepared to work with us, and we put some good quality feed with good nutrients and vitamins, and we changed the taste of the chicken so I could at least eat them. So it's still a crab turkey, but it tasted a little bit more like a duck, because it was dark meat. But it was what they liked. They loved their dark meat up there. So in the breeding department, we had these roosters which strut around and got all their feathers on. When they've got feathers on like that, that means they're not mating. They look nice. They're probably fighting cocks that Duncan found out of the villages somewhere. Probably looking for a fight somewhere. And they fought, I can tell you these things. And I said to Duncan, well, to get this structure, to get this going and to make it a profitable, sustainable social business, it's got to make profit. So then they started changing the shed designs, so the birds are all running around outside, but there's inherent risk with that, because you have predators and hawks, you have lots of birds that are flying around the tips, so potentially there's a health issue problem because of biosecurity and disease can be spread. So we found that out through getting birds tested to check that there potentially could have been some issues. So we decided to build new style sheds, so they did make some money. And with that money, they were able to get some very generous donations from donors. And we started building these types of sheds that you can see there now, and then modifying sheds that we had existingly built. So they actually had the structure. They did a very good job with the structure. And I said to Duncan, this is like the eighth wonder of the world. I don't know how the hell you even got to this point, because no one knew what they were doing, but they actually did quite a good job. But the structure was there, it was just a matter of fine-tuning it. So we went to got them to build renovate these sheds and get them to a level where it was starting to house them in the sheds, get feed and water properly, and then we had to look for some new genetical stock. So we found some stock to cross with these scrub turkeys, and they started growing, producing really good quality chickens. But the next one, we didn't have a proper hatchery. So we had a consultant in Australia that had been spent most of his life in hatcheries. He was a good friend of mine, we worked together, and I said to Peter, could you come up to, he spent a lot of time in Papua New Guinea, could you come up to Cambodia and consult and see whether you can put a hatchery up here to hatch these chickens? And so we did that, and we set a world's best quality standard hatchery. So the now can produce will be as at next week. The hatchery's going, but we've just got to add a couple little bits to it to hatch chicken eggs go into incubator, then they're hatched afterwards. So it's a 21-day cycle. We haven't been able to change that. 21 days is what a hen takes, and it still takes the same when we do it artificially. So those little chickens are looking very healthy, and that then now we're just about to hit the big scene. In 3 to 4 months' time, we will have enough chickens there to start setting up these village projects, and that's we're not going to give them day-old chickens. We're going to wait till about 5 or 6 days of age before we actually pan them out. But there's a lot of work that's got to be done for the people on the farms and for Duncan and his team to set this project up. So there's been a lot of paperwork written as to how we're going to manage that. So I set all that up when I was in Papua New Guinea and Fiji. So these chickens it's all done through training, so we have to do a massive amount of training for these people to understand what we're doing and try to get them the vision so they can support the growth of the business. So this training goes every day. My wife has been up there and she's very structured in making sure that the people understand why they're there, what they're doing, and to get rewarded for what they do. This is most important because these people, remember, have had nothing. So they've all been given intensive training through their local people, not us, the local people have done that. So they have come, we've brought some people that have had some knowledge, and we've given them some written books in Khmer that had to be translated, so they all speak Khmer. There's a couple of a very good English teacher up there that was able to teach them and educate them. So from there, they were given certificates once they've achieved certain levels of employment, job tasks basically. And you should have seen the smile on their face. Absolutely, totally rewarding it was. They've never received anything in their whole life. And then now they've got a certificate so they can get a job, and it shows they've turned up to work, they've been diligent, they've been responsible, they know H&S, work health and safety, they understand about hygiene, they understand about helping each other, working together as a team, which is so important, which we all take for granted because we're all trained that way, but they haven't never been in that position before. So these people can go on and get jobs anywhere they like. There's, and Duncan didn't mention, but there's about 3.5 million tourists a year coming into Siem Reap every year. These people have got to be looked after. They've got hotels they're building like you've never seen anything in your life before, and they want people to look after, to support the tourist industry. So they could get jobs there. They could, maybe some of them might have an opportunity to go out and grow their own chickens. So that's something we're working on now. So this is a hatchery, and the people that helped us build the hatchery, and they were all keen to sort of find out how it all works. So there was an intensive training program went there with Duncan and this guy from Adelaide that come up to teach them about the technology. So these people haven't had technology before. So we had to introduce that to them, and it's marvellous. They're very smart and very switched on people. So also Duncan has set up a school training program for the children of the village. So that some of them are the children from the mums that work on the farms. But there's a lot of children there that just come from the local Penondai village, and probably most of those mums and if there's any dads would be working on the tip. I'd say there's very little employment around that area. So that's just marvellous to see these kids being taught English at this school. So that's an ongoing program, and they need that up there because of the tourists that come in. So the infrastructure is very solid. They've got that's the offices and the mess area, the kitchen, dining and hatchery and offices. It's a very, very good structure. They've done a very good job of it, so we're set for a future growth. The risks that I saw in my short time I've been there was that there was inherent risks with the way that the chickens are grown in the villages now. So my structure that I've actually documented now that will be rolled out with the local people, and my wife has just helped write that, will be to start the people that are going to grow the chickens at village level. We aim to have a lot of these growers. We'll be rolling this out and get as many growers as we can based on the chickens that we can produce. Now the problem in Cambodia is people willing to do it, but there's no chicken farms. This is the first Khmer chicken farm in Cambodia. There's the commercial operations, the likes of the birds that you eat now in the shop. There's a company up there that produce chickens from Thailand and bring it across. But they're a white meat bird. They don't like white meat. They want a darker coloured meat, a little bit more flavour to it. this is the traditional scrub turkey, I call them, the Khmer chicken running around the villages, but they're susceptible to diseases and they don't produce much. You know, it takes them 6 months to get to a kilo in body weight, and they're very tough to eat. The chickens that Duncan will be getting produced, that will be produced through this breeding operation and crossing a couple of good quality breeds, they'll be able to get their bird out to about a 1.8 to 2 kilo bird in about 8 or 9 weeks. And those birds will be then sent off to probably wholesalers or into village areas or into hotels. Grameen won't be part of that. We'll support them and guide them through that process. But the selling of the chicken will be there. It'll be their own microfinance business. So that's when Grameen will come in, because they'll finance these farmers. But there's a lot of groundwork's got to happen first, because there's got to be pre-qualification, and it'll mainly be women. And my experience that I had in Papua New Guinea and Fiji and Vanuatu, where I worked, was that women tend to take more social responsibility for their family, and they're very, very good with managing money. I know my wife's always looking, where are you spending this now? So yes, I understand that. So the women are the main ones that we'll be targeting, but it'll be part of a family unit. So it's important that we understand where they own the land, because jealousy is going to come in here. Where are they structured? Have they got a house? Have they got the right sanitary system, as Professor Eunice mentioned? Have they got water there? Have they got power? Have they worked before? Have they had a loan before? How are they going to, do they understand about finance? All this has got to go through the process before they're actually going to get a chicken farm, because they're going to be, money's going to be borrowed to them, and they're going to grow their business as it grows. So we're aiming to have, Duncan's goal is to have these types of farms that I've got on this slide now, which is a farmer that we had in Papua New Guinea. So we haven't actually set this up in Cambodia yet. But these types of farms, we're aiming to have touched the hearts of about 1 million people in 5 years, and through 500 or 600 farms. And that, for every dollar you spend in the community, it's $4 spins off around the community. And so that's a lot of money that's going to get back into the community. So it was through this parent breeding operation farm, which has got a lot more work to do yet, and more money has got to be spent, but you've got to crawl before you can walk. But we're aiming to also go into the egg operation as well, which Duncan's, because of the demand of people that are coming in, and that's commercial eggs. We're in the domain, the Dana Asia operation in Cambodia is a fertile egg broiler operation, and it's quite a unique operation in that area. They're happening in that, they're all over the place in Thailand and Vietnam, but not from a social business point of view. There's people that are doing it, but they've got to rely on a company to buy the chickens from to start up their own business. They're very entrepreneurial people, the Vietnamese and Cambodian and the Thai people, but it's having that structure in place and having business that's sustainable and it's going to go on forever. And I want it to be there in 40 years' time, which is what happened that I experienced with what I did. So that's why we got involved. I don't go there a lot. I don't need to. I know what it's all about, but when we have been there, it's just to guide them and give them guidance. But as a result of internet, we're able to do it, and that's how, it's a small world, isn't it? It's just amazing. So that's the team. Thank you very much.